The lock clicked, and I remember the silence that followed was heavier than the gym bag I dropped by the door. It was 2 a.m., the kind of late where your own footsteps sound like drums. I just finished a brutal double shift, dead on my feet, and all I wanted was my bed. But when I flicked on the hallway light, I saw it. A small, pink post-it note stuck right above the thermostat. My roommate, Liam, wasn't exactly known for his organizational skills, so seeing a note felt instantly weird. I peeled it off. The handwriting was neat, slanted, and definitely not his. It just said, "Need to talk. Don't wake Liam. Upstairs, back bedroom." Now, this is where the heart starts pounding. Liam lives on the first floor of this old duplex. Upstairs, that's where she lived. Liam's older sister, Maya. She was this mythical figure in our shared life. She paid the rent, she owned the place, but she was never around. She traveled for work, something vague and high-pressure that involved long flights and expensive suits. I'd maybe seen her 3 times in 6 months, and each time she just nodded a polite, chilly greeting. She was stunning, but distant, like a character in a movie you're not allowed to talk to. We had this unspoken rule: her floor, her space, her life, don't interfere. And here I was, standing in the dark, holding a note that broke that very rule. My mind started running wild. Had I messed something up? Did I leave the oven on? Did Liam finally tell her about the broken railing he swore he'd fix? Landlords, even when they're your roommate's sister, are terrifying. I imagined her, standing sternly, holding a clipboard full of complaints. I took a deep breath, trying to talk myself down. Maybe it was something simple, a quick question about the utilities. But why the secrecy? Why not just text? I was already halfway up the wooden stairs when my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a new number. The text was short, blunt, and sent a shiver straight down my spine. "Come upstairs, but don't knock." It was the same neat handwriting I saw on the note. It was Maya. I stopped dead on the landing. The second floor was usually pitch black, silent, and intimidating. But tonight, a thin line of light was spilling from under the last door at the end of the hall. The back bedroom. I stood there, heart hammering against my ribs, convinced I was about to be evicted or maybe scolded like a kid. But then a thought colder than eviction crept in. If she just wanted to yell at me about the rent, why the urgency? Why the don't knock? I took one final step toward the glowing door, my hand reaching for the icy brass knob, wondering if I was about to walk into the worst mistake of my life. What kind of secret meeting happens in the dead of night, in the one part of the house I was explicitly told to avoid? I turned the handle, the door swung open, and the sight inside was definitely not a clipboard and a lecture. The moment I stepped across the threshold, my entire perception of Maya shattered. Instead of the cold, professional woman I expected, she was sitting on the edge of a massive, unmade bed, wearing a soft gray sweater and jeans, clutching a chipped ceramic mug. But it was her face that stopped me. It was pale, and the exhaustion wasn't the kind you get from a long flight. It was the kind that hollows out your eyes. "Thanks for coming," she whispered, her voice husky, gesturing vaguely to the chair in the corner. "Close the door." Gently, I closed it, and the sound seemed to seal us into a completely different world. Her room was unlike the rest of the spotless house. It was a controlled chaos of half-packed suitcases, open blueprints scattered on a mahogany desk, and a photo of her and Liam from years ago, a big, goofy smile on her face that I had never seen in person. I sat down, my hands gripping my knees. I had been living with Liam for almost a year. We were friends from college, a classic pairing of a laid-back guy and the one who actually paid the bills. Our rent situation was ideal because of Maya. She had always insisted on keeping the duplex in the family, and she gave Liam a huge discount, which he shared with me. Because of that generosity, I felt this overwhelming, unspoken obligation to be invisible, to cause zero trouble, to be the perfect, quiet tenant. My relationship with Maya was purely transactional and always conducted through clipped emails about rent payments. I knew almost nothing about her, except that she was fiercely dedicated to her career and fiercely protective of Liam, who was 6 years younger. Liam himself never talked much about her, always deflecting with a shrug. "She's just busy, man." But I'd sometimes catch him looking up at the ceiling, especially late at night, a weird mix of worry and pride on his face. "Look," Maya said, setting her mug down with a shaky clatter. "This is going to sound insane. And you probably think I'm crazy for dragging you up here, but I need your help. Not Liam's. Yours. My stomach dropped. My help? What could a paralegal like me offer a woman who seemed to run international finance? I thought of the blueprints. Maybe she needed me to look over a contract? But the look in her eyes was far too panicked for a business meeting. It was raw, almost desperate. What is it? I managed to ask, my throat dry. She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, and lowered her voice to a near inaudible murmur. It's about my job. I think someone is following me. And they might have realized where I live. I felt a sudden, cold rush of adrenaline. Following her? Was this some corporate espionage nightmare? Then she slowly reached under the pillow and pulled out something that made my breath catch in my chest. A small, black, unfamiliar electronic device. I found this taped under my car, she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I think it's a tracker. And if I'm right about who put it there, then they aren't just looking for me. They're looking for something I have. And I have to assume they might be watching the house, watching us right now. I looked at the black box in her hand, then at the door, then back at her terrified face. Was the silence downstairs just silence, or was it the sound of someone waiting? If she was being tracked, and she had something dangerous, why in the world was she telling me? And more importantly, what was she planning to do next? Why me? I asked, my voice barely above a squeak. I felt completely out of my depth. This wasn't about unpaid utilities. This was genuine danger. Maya put the tracker down on the bedspread, pushing it away as if it were contaminated. Because Liam can't know. He panics. He freezes. He's too open, too trusting. If I tell him, he'll try to be the hero, and he'll jeopardize everything. I can't risk him getting hurt. You're different. You're quiet. You're observant. You keep to yourself. You're a detail person. I've watched you. The realization hit me. This cold, distant woman had actually been watching me. She was assessing my capabilities as a tenant, and now, as an unwitting accomplice. My sense of obligation intensified, twisted now by fear. If she was right, the danger wasn't just to her, but to the entire house, to Liam. But what do you need me to do? I pressed, looking around her room nervously. The light from the window seemed suddenly insufficient. Every shadow felt suspicious. She took a shaky breath, finally meeting my eyes, and for the first time, the high-powered executive disappeared, leaving behind just a scared young woman. I have something here that a group of people, very dangerous people, believe is their property. It's information. I took it because it proves they've been defrauding millions and covering up illegal activities. If I turn it over, they go down. If they get it back, I go down. And anyone connected to me. She reached behind a row of heavy reference books on the shelf and pulled out a simple, unmarked external hard drive. It was tiny, ordinary, and looked completely harmless, yet it felt like the most radioactive object in the world. I have to get out of the city tonight. Right now? They might be here any minute, she said, her voice rising in panic. But I can't risk taking this with me. If they catch me, they'll find it and destroy the evidence. I need you to hold it. Just for 2 days. Hide it somewhere they'd never think to look. Somewhere only you have access. The weight of the situation felt crushing. Hide evidence from criminals? This was insane. I wanted to refuse, wanted to run back downstairs and pretend the last 5 minutes never happened. But then I looked at the hard drive, and then at the worried picture of her and Liam, and the word evidence echoed in my mind. If I agree, I whispered, what happens if they come here looking for you and find me instead? She closed her eyes for a long, silent moment. When she opened them, her expression was grim. If they come, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous register, you have to tell them you haven't seen me. And no matter what they say, no matter what they do, you absolutely cannot let them find what is inside your room. I took the hard drive. It was cool and smooth in my sweaty palm, a tiny object with the power to ruin or save lives. The moment I closed my hand around it, I became a part of her dangerous secret. We quickly ran through the logistics. She gave me a single, obscure code word that only she would use to signal she was safe and ready to retrieve it. She told me to lock my bedroom door, avoid using any electronics connected to the shared Wi-Fi, and under no circumstances mention her name or the situation to Liam. I have to go, she said, grabbing a small duffel bag from the closet. The professional urgency had returned, replacing the fear. Stay calm. Don't change your routine. If you act normal, They'll assume I just left town for business. They won't suspect you." As she spoke, a sound ripped through the silence of the night. A sharp, unmistakable thunk from downstairs. It sounded like something hitting the front porch. We froze. Maya's eyes snapped to the door, wide with pure terror. "They're early," she breathed out, her hands shaking as she zipped her bag. Wait, what was that?" I whispered, standing up, the hard drive burning a hole in my pocket. "I don't know, a distraction? A warning? It doesn't matter. It means they know I'm still here, or they're checking to see if the tracker is moving." She moved with sudden speed, pulling a lightweight coat over her sweater. "My car is parked 3 blocks over. I can't leave from here. There's a back staircase in the attic that leads down to the garage alley. It's rusted, but it works. Go. Get downstairs now. Hide that thing." She pushed me out the door. The moment I was in the hallway, the low, muffled sound of a car engine idling outside the house filtered in through the old windows. The suspense was agonizing. I raced silently down the stairs, heart in my throat, trying to move like a ghost, praying Liam wouldn't stir. I slipped into my room, locked the door, and sank against it, fighting for breath. Where to hide it? Not under the mattress. Too cliché. Not in a drawer. Too obvious. I looked around my small, messy room. My desk, my bookshelf, my mountain bike leaning against the wall. Then I saw it. The broken baseboard heater cover in the corner, the one I'd been meaning to fix for 3 months. It was dusty and loose. Perfect. I quickly pried the cover off, wrapped the hard drive in a sock, and shoved it deep into the dark cavity behind the coil. I replaced the cover, dusting my hands off just as a beam of bright light swept across my window. Definitely a car, and it was moving slowly. The clock on my phone read 2:15 a.m. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold. A heavy, decisive knock on the front door. 1 knock. Then 2. Then a steady, relentless pounding that would wake the dead. I stood rigid in the center of the room, staring at the door. I could hear Liam's groggy voice asking, "Who is it?" and the scrape of his chair as he got out of bed. The people Maya feared were here. I had less than 30 seconds before they were inside. My mind raced. I just hid the hard drive. I had to act normal. But what if they went straight for my room? What if they knew I talked to Maya? I gripped the doorknob, ready to face them. But then, through the thin wall, I heard the exchange. It wasn't just 2 people. There were 3 voices, deep and insistent. And then I heard one of them mention Maya's name, followed by a sentence that made my entire world tilt on its axis. It wasn't a threat. It was something far more confusing and terrifying. "We know she didn't leave alone, Liam. Now, where is your little partner?" "We know she didn't leave alone, Liam. Now, where is your little partner?" Liam's voice was shaky, denying everything. I was pressed against my door, listening, trying to formulate a plan. But the man's words echoed in my head. Partner. Did they think I was romantically involved with Maya? No, that didn't make sense. Then, the final voice spoke, smooth and utterly cold, cutting through the confusion. "Don't waste our time, kid. We know she's trying to sell the plans. And we know you helped her set up the whole escrow account in his name." I gasped silently, clutching my mouth. The plans? The hard drive wasn't just information about fraud. It was evidence of a major corporate crime, something involving millions. And the escrow account, in my name? Maya hadn't just asked me to hide it. She had tied my identity to the escape plan. I wasn't an unwitting tenant anymore. I was a documented co-conspirator. She didn't trust me because I was quiet. She used me because I was a clean slate, a perfect fall guy if things went wrong. Suddenly, the pounding stopped. I heard heavy footsteps moving down the hall. Asterisk, asterisk, toward my room, asterisk, asterisk. I stared at the thin wooden door, realizing the chilling truth. She had taught me how to live safely under the radar, but she had taught me how to trust her by making me the central point of her deception. And now, the cost of that trust was about to be paid. The doorknob twisted violently. The door didn't open immediately, thanks to the cheap lock, but the force behind the twist was enough to make the frame shudder. I didn't move, bracing myself for the inevitable. The voices outside were louder now, irritated. I could hear Liam weakly protesting in the background, his voice laced with terror. Then came a booming voice, right against the wood. "Open the door, or we open it for you. We just want the drive, and we won't hurt the kid who helped his sister. We just want to finish the job." My mind flashed back to the dusty baseboard heater. The hard drive was safe, but my life wasn't. They were operating on the assumption that I was in on it, that I willingly helped Maya. That was my only chance. I had to sell the lie. I unlocked the door and swung it open, trying to project confusion, not fear. Standing there were three huge men in dark, expensive suits, the kind of men who didn't negotiate. Their eyes immediately scanned the room, looking past me for an accomplice or an obvious hiding spot. "Who are you?" I demanded, making my voice shake with faux anger. "It's 2 a.m. What are you doing to Liam?" The leader, a man with razor-sharp eyes, stepped into the room, ignoring my question. "Where is she? Where is Maya? And where is the drive she promised you?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I cried, backing away slightly. "Liam's sister is gone. She left town for work months ago. The only thing she promised me was cheap rent." He smirked, a cruel, cold expression. "Nice try, kid. The money transfer hit your account 3 hours ago. The escrow release code is on that drive. We have the proof." He pointed a thick finger at my desk. "Get it?" I felt the blood drain from my face. Money transfer? This wasn't just about a hard drive. It was a setup to pay for my silence or cooperation. Maya had deposited money into my personal account without my knowledge, framing me completely. The walls were closing in. Just as the man took a threatening step toward me, a high-pitched, piercing alarm began to shriek, not from the house, but from the small, black tracker Maya had shown me earlier. The three men instantly froze, looking frantic. The leader cursed under his breath, pulling out his own phone. "She set the beacon. She's moving the handover point. Check the car now." In that split second of chaos, I realized the final, brilliant twist. Maya hadn't asked me to hide the real hard drive. She had given me a dummy drive, an explosive distraction, and then she planted a functioning, GPS-enabled tracker on her own person, or perhaps on the men's getaway car, to lure them away from the house entirely. She had used my room as bait to buy herself the time she needed to escape and secure the real evidence. The men raced out of the room, slamming the front door behind them as their car tires squealed away. I stood there, trembling, knowing I was safe, but understanding I was nothing more than a carefully placed pawn. I looked down at my phone. A message notification popped up from an unknown number. It contained a single word, followed by a time and date. Tango, 7 o'clock. The code word. Maya was safe, but she needed me to do one last, impossible thing. I slowly reached back into the baseboard heater, knowing the danger wasn't over. The hard drive in my hand was a dummy, but what did she want me to deliver at 7 a.m.? And who was going to meet me? I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed, the dummy hard drive on my pillow, watching the clock tick towards 7 a.m. Liam finally staggered into my room around 6:30, pale and utterly shell-shocked. He didn't ask about the men. He just stared blankly at the wall. "They think I'm a thief," he murmured, his voice hollow. "They said Maya. They said she stole something huge, and that I helped her set up an account." I finally understood the full scope of Maya's manipulation, but also her strange protectiveness. She had created a fictional partner, me, to draw attention away from the real person she needed to protect, her little brother. The escrow account, the entire setup, was designed to make me a believable scapegoat, ensuring that when the men left, they truly believed the trail of the hard drive led elsewhere. If they had believed Liam was the key, they would have stayed and tortured him for information. "Listen, Liam," I started, my voice steady despite the adrenaline crash. "I think those men were mistaken. Your sister is in serious trouble, and I think she was using me as a distraction. I don't know anything about the plans, but I do know she's trying to keep you safe. She has a code word for me. I think I'm supposed to meet someone this morning." Liam looked at me, a flicker of hope and fear in his eyes. He finally told me the full truth about Maya. Her job wasn't corporate finance. She was a specialized investigator auditing high-level corporate fraud. She had gone undercover and obtained the ultimate evidence, but she knew the organization was too powerful for a normal handover. She needed a contingency plan. The Tango, 7 o'clock, meeting was my final test. I agreed to go alone. Liam insisted on waiting by the phone, promising to call the police if I didn't text him within 15 minutes of the meeting time. At exactly 7 a.m., I found myself standing outside a nondescript downtown coffee shop, holding the useless drive. A woman approached, wearing a dark trench coat and sunglasses, carrying a briefcase. She looked nothing like Maya. "Tango?" she asked, her voice low. "Tango, I confirmed, handing her the dummy drive. She took it without question and placed it in her briefcase. Maya is safe. She's out of the country, in protective custody. The real evidence is already with the authorities. She just needed a clean diversion to ensure the handover was successful. You were the clean diversion. I felt a surge of indignation, then acceptance. She put me in danger. The woman nodded, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. She knows. She chose you because she saw the core of who you are, reliable, quiet, unnoticed. She taught you how to live unseen. She needed you to trust her enough to play the part. She then reached into her coat and pulled out a plain white envelope. For your time, and for the trouble. She also wanted me to give you this. Inside the envelope was not just a substantial bank transfer receipt, but a handwritten note on a pink post-it, the exact same color as the one from the night before. It simply read, I taught you how to trust. Now use that trust to live a life that IS noticed. And tell Liam I love him. The apartment is yours. M. Reading those words, the fear and confusion finally melted away, replaced by a strange sense of liberation. She hadn't just used me. She had inadvertently chosen me for a better life. She gave me the apartment, security, and a terrifying story that ended in absolute freedom. I realized that sometimes, the greatest relationships are not built on shared happy memories, but on shared, desperate trusts. I went back home, walked into my new apartment, and told Liam everything. He cried, then smiled, and we finally started living not as cautious tenants, but as safe, free men. I still have the pink post-it note, a reminder that the most ordinary people can be thrust into the most extraordinary circumstances, and sometimes, the price of freedom is temporary fear. And as for Maya, she taught me one final thing. Never, ever assume the hardest part is over. Because to this day, every time a new, unknown number texts me, I still jump a little, wondering if the story and the danger is truly finished.